welcome back to another episode of the Female Empowered Podcast. I'm your host, Krista Gurka, and today we're diving into a topic that came up recently in one of my FitBiz Foundation's calls. It's about compensation structures for both physical therapists, Pilates instructors, yoga instructors, basically your service providers. And why this matters is because how you pay your team directly affects everything from retention to profitability to overall team structure and culture. And unfortunately, I see a lot of studio and practice owners get this wrong. Either they're paying too much and their profit margins are suffering, or they've created an overly complicated structure that requires a lot of manual intervention and no one really understands. I want to walk you through some of the most common pay models, their pros and cons, some of the benefits and perks you can consider, and how to choose the right system for your business without falling into some of the big mistakes I made, as well as some of the big mistakes I see happen all the time. One of the most common compensation models is just to do hourly pay. Hourly pay is basically you just pay them by the hour. They get paid $30 an hour, $25 an hour, $40 an hour, whatever your system is. The pros of this compensation structure that it's simple, it's predictable for both you and the employee. It's super easy for bookkeeping. It works really well for instructors or therapists that are just starting out or those that are subbing, right? Now, the cons of this, a standard hourly rate doesn't really incentivize growth. In other words, they're going to get paid whether they have a client or not, or they're going to get paid whether they have a full class or not. It works when people are building a client base, but I don't love this model because, again, I don't think it incentivizes growth. And I also just think it's not great for overall productivity. But some people love this model. It's probably the way that you pay your administrators or something like that. So it is an option. And when you do this option, that hourly rate should be based on the expense, on the revenue that you're bringing in. So, for example, if you're bringing in $100, that hourly rate should be around $30. Okay. So it really should be approximately 30% for an employee, 30 to 35 of what you bring in. Okay. Now, this pay scale, this model is the one I used in my business at Pilates in the Grove, and the one I also recommend for class-based businesses. This is the per head plus a base pay. So this would basically be they get a base pay of $12, $15, $20, and then a per head of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 for each client in the class. So the pros of this type of pay structure is instructors get a base hourly pay plus a bonus beyond a certain number. So this really incentivizes them and encourages them to fill their classes, retain clients, and even do upsells along the way. So how can you structure this? You can start with a base pay of $12 or $13, and then every client that comes in gets anywhere from 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So let's say you have 6 reformers. If your instructors get $5 a person, that would be 5 times 6, that's 30, plus their base is 12, so they can get 42. Okay. If you give them $6 a head, they can get 6 times 6 is 36 plus a $13 base. That's like 49. So do you see how that can go up? So you can have a higher base and a lower per head, or you can have a lower base and a higher per head. Either one. All right. You can also do a per head after clients 3. You could do a per head after client 2. You could do a per head after client 5, right? You could also do a per head where it's like a $15 base, $5 per head for clients 1 through 5, and $3 per head for clients 6 through 10. All of it is so that you can have a mutually beneficial experience for both the instructor and the studio. The con for this, it can get tricky if your base rate is too high and you're in a market where filling classes is consistently tough. However, if you get to the point that your instructors and your marketing efforts are really optimizing for your utilization at 60, 70, 80%, this is a great win for both you as a studio and for the instructors. At Pilates in the Grove, we had instructors that were making 80, 90, $95 an hour for their class. So that was great. Now, if you don't have the capacity to have a lot of reformers, so if you're at a studio where you have 4 or 5 or 6 reformers, you know, it's going to be difficult for instructors to make $90 unless you're charging $60 for the class. Now, percentage split models. So this used to be a common pay structure in both studios and physical therapy practices. It's where the staff gets a percentage of the revenue. So you can do 50-50 splits. You can do, I've heard 60-40 splits, 70-30 splits, 30-70 splits. It's easy to scale up or down. So now the con is when you as a studio are taking 50% or less of the fee. So a lot of the thought process was, oh, well, we get 50% as a studio and the instructors are doing 50% of the work, so they get 50%. However, they get to keep 100% of their 50%, and you have to split your 50% in rent, marketing, utilities, operational fees, admin staff, your salary, etc. So it doesn't always work out equally unless you do a 30%, 30 to 35% to the clinician, and you're keeping 65 to 70%, okay, as a business. The other reason I don't love this percentage model is if you actually pay 30%, then when you raise your prices, the margin is still the same. So what I like to say is base their hourly rate on a percentage, but don't actively tie it exactly to the percentage, because if your rates go up, then their percentage goes up as well, and then you can't get a bigger margin in through there. Okay. So another one is salary structures. I see a lot of it. This is very common in the physical therapy practice world where PTs come on under a salary. So the pros of this, it does provide stability and predictability for both you and the team member. It does help with retention and positioning your business as a long-term career option for physical therapists. The cons are it really hurts, or it's a big challenge when your employee is on salary and they're revenue generating and they're not at 80% or more utilization. So if you're paying someone an $80,000, $90,000 salary, but they're only generating like $150,000 in revenue because their schedule is not full, that does not work well for the business. You will be underwater and your payroll will be 50 to 60% of your revenue, which is never good. Salaries work well when you have very predictable cash flow and someone is operating at 70, 80% utilization, especially if they're a clinician, a service provider. So if you're still in early growth stages, locking in a salary can be really risky because if it takes a long time to ramp that person up, you could be underwater a little bit. Okay, so those are the most common compensation structures we see for service providers. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits and perks because compensation isn't just about a paycheck. Sometimes perks matter to your team just as much, especially for retention and especially for recruiting high value, high quality clinicians. So let's talk about health benefits. Having health benefits can be very expensive for a business. And here's the other thing. Benefits really should go specifically to full-time employees. I see a lot of businesses offering benefits to part-time employees. And in the general world and variety of industries, part-time employees don't qualify for benefits. Okay, so full-time, you can set, different states have different requirements. I believe in the state of Florida, it's 28 hours. So they're great benefits for full-time people. But remember, your part-time 10-hour-a-week people don't really qualify for health insurance, nor do they qualify for PTO, paid time off. So if you're offering health benefits, they should be for your full-time employees and they should be for people that are opting in. It is expensive. I think I've done other podcasts on how to get health insurance for your company. Most businesses now are in lieu of health insurance offering a stipend so that the staff member can go out and secure health insurance on their own. Continuing education. CEU reimbursements is a great benefit to add to your perks and benefits and to your offer and compensation package. Now, if you want to offer continuing education to part-time employees, I think that that can be okay. And it signals that you really care about their professional growth, but it should also be commensurate with the hours they put in. So I don't think anyone that works less than 5 hours a week really should qualify for benefits. But you can say if you work between 5 and 15 hours a week, you get $200 to $500 a year in continuing education. If you work 15 to 25 hours a week, you get $400 a year. If you work 25 hours a week or more, maybe you get $700 a year. And then what we did at Pilates in the Grove was this went up year after year of employment. So the highest paid continuing education payout stipend was if you worked 5 years or more and you worked 25 hours or more, I think it was a $2,000 a year continuing education stipend. So you can stagger this. For me, contractors did not get any benefits. And if someone is a 1099 contractor, this is really, really important that you're not commingling benefits with 1099 pay because you're setting yourself up for a possible lawsuit of misclassification of employee and contractor. So contractors, any 1099 contractor does not qualify for benefits, not free classes, not paid time off, not vacation pay, not continuing education stipend, not bonuses. Okay. So another thing that you can do are free or discounted classes, memberships. So basically, you could do if at Pilates in the Grove, we did if a spot was open in a class, an employee could jump into that class. If a paid client came, the employee had to leave. But if there was space and there was room for them and they wanted to just show up and jump into class, that was great. That was what was allowed at our studio. These are really great benefits for retention and attraction strategies. So think about perks that allow you to keep your best members with you long term, then and also allow you to keep your best staff with you long term. They will help you attract people that are looking to grow within your organization. Right. So what perks can you offer, especially if you cannot offer health insurance because you get priced out of the market with that? Now, how do you choose which model is right for you and which benefit structure is right for you? One, your business model. So are you a high volume Pilates studio or a boutique, low volume, high ticket physical therapy practice? The model you choose should match your service type. Now, another thing to consider is your cash salaries if your revenue fluctuates dramatically. Likewise, don't overpromise percentages that leave you with no profit. I am a big fan of hourly employees where service providers get paid per revenue generating hour. This was the pay structure that we had at Pilates in the Grove. And even with that, we were able to have a few instructors, probably at least two, I believe, maybe three, have six-figure salaries at the end of the year, while Pilates in the Grove was still able to have multiple six figures in profit. And myself, as the owner who was not revenue generating, was still able to have a six-figure salary as well. So it is possible. Okay. The other thing you want to look at is your profit margins. This is the biggest one. You must align your pay structure with your profitability goals. And if you're paying out more than 50% of your revenue to payroll, you're likely squeezing yourself out of profitability and sustainability for brick and mortar fitness businesses. So I'm going to say that again. If you're paying out more than 50% of your revenue to payroll, you're likely squeezing yourself out of profitability and sustainability. And I am going to show you why. So I'm going to bring over my handy dandy little whiteboard that I love. Okay. And so if you're listening to this, which most of you are, because it's a podcast, I'm going to encourage you to go to YouTube and watch this little section of the video. Okay. Because I'm going to do this little math equation for you. So let's say you charge $100 for a session. Okay. You get $100. Now, if you pay 50% to your clinician, okay, now you're left with $50. Okay, now generally 10% of your revenue goes to your rent. So if 10%, so that's another $10 goes to rent. All right, you've got 3% that goes to credit card fees. So now you've got $3 that are going to go to credit card fees. So now you're left after $10 to rent, you're left with $40 minus $3 for credit card fees. Now you're down to $37. Okay. Minus, let's say you have 30% that goes to overall operations, which is pretty standard, which means that goes to your additional payroll for your admin team, for your booking software, for the utilities, for payroll expenses, for marketing. So that's another 30%. So that's another $30. Okay. So that leaves you with $7 left. $7, okay, to pay your taxes, your owner's salary, right? And any miscellaneous expenses. So like licenses, all of that stuff. Okay. And if you're left with $7 from $100 that you bring in, that is only a 7% profit margin. So now you're left a 7% profit margin. And your goal is to have a 15% profit margin. Okay. So you can see how if you have your percentage of what you pay out too high, you don't have anything left. And this is a really good exercise to do with your team so they can see why it's not feasible for them to make 50%. Okay. So again, if you're looking at this, this is a great little video for you to do and evaluate, right? So if you don't want to change your team, you can't tell, well, we can't pay you $50 anymore. What you have to do is really increase your prices to accommodate what you are paying out for your team. All right. I know this is real nitty gritty. Okay. Try not to overcomplicate your pay structure as much as you can. The more confusing your pay structure is, the less your staff will trust in it. Keep it simple, keep it fair. Do an exercise like this where you're showing them that you as a business need to keep at least 15%. One for a rainy day fund, one to give bonuses, one to give raises, one if God forbid you have to order more equipment or something happens, right? You need to have that profit in your business in order to operate. So here's my challenge to you this week. Take a look at your current compensation structures. Are they actually aligned with your profitability goals? Are they easy to explain? Do they make sense for the type of business you're running? And if not, it may be time to simplify and adjust. If this is something you want to dive deeper into, we do an entire training on pay structures, margins, retention inside my FitBiz monthly membership. It's only $99 a month. It is less than this exercise. It's less than the cost of a private physical therapy session. It's less than the cost of a private Pilates session. Okay. It's less than the cost of what you charge a monthly membership at your Pilates studio. It's a great place if you're still figuring out your business model, and if you're more winging it than actually making decisions, I'd love for you to head over to www.kristagurka.com/fitbizfoundations to check it out. All right. That is all I have for you today. I hope this was insightful and educational. I thank you so much for listening. And as always, until next time, my friends, bye for now.